Welcome back to another episode of Live With, brought to you by Quest Nutrition. Visit questnutrition.com. I'm Dave Palumbo, and today's guest is a very special one. He's been in the industry for more than 35 years. He worked at Gold's Gym Venice. He owned and still owns a great clothing company by the name of California CRAZEE WEAR. I've known him for many, many years. He's known many of the top dogs in the bodybuilding world, and we got him here today to learn a little history of our industry. It's my pleasure to welcome Don Smith. How's it going, Don?
Good to be here with you today, Dave.
Yeah, Don, you've seen it all pretty much. Way before me, that's for sure. A lot of people don't really know the clothing companies because back in the 90s, the clothing companies were the most powerful, I guess you could say, revenue streams, I think even surpassing supplements at some point, because everyone felt the need to wear these special bodybuilding clothes, as I like to call them. How did you get involved with the whole industry? Explain to us where you came from, what your roots were.
Well, Dave, I was out of Louisiana, and I had just won Mr. America in 1987. Moved out to California, like every bodybuilder's dream, and wanted to make a success of it. And started working at Gold's Gym, became manager of Gold's Gym. Then I hooked up with Mike Christian, which became a really good friend of mine, and he had a clothing company of making baggy pants, and I started working with him. But Mike had further dreams, different things that he had that was different than what I had. So Gary Stratham and I got together, another famous pro bodybuilder.
I want to stop you for a minute because I want to talk about first Gold's Gym. You get to Gold's Gym, you're a starry-eyed kid, you're like, holy mackerel, this is where all the top bodybuilders go to train. If I'm going to be Mr. Olympia, I got to train in this gym. Who do you meet first there? Because, I mean, you went from moving there to becoming manager of Gold's Gym. That's a big step. How did that happen?
Well, I'd known a lot of guys from over the year, Mike Christian, Gary Stratham, Lyle Alzado became a really good friend of mine. And then, of course, Pete Jankowski owned the gym at that time, one of the major owners. And it was a tremendous atmosphere there, like you can't explain, because things have changed so much over the years. But it was just an awesome place to be and to work out. And I was offered the job because I'd owned other gyms. They had found out I owned other gyms in Louisiana and all over.
Right.
And he gave me the job of managing, which was really terrific. And then from there, I began to move into Gary Stratham, and I got together and began to move into business of our own.
When you were at Gold's Gym, like what time did you get there in the morning, say, to start work?
Usually probably around 8 o'clock. I wasn't there real early, but it was a good time. The guys would start rolling in, all the pros.
Yeah, give us an example of who might stroll in at 8 o'clock in the morning on a typical Gold's Gym morning.
Oh, you had Michael Landon. You had all the movie stars, Gregory Hines. You had Lyle Alzado. You had the Barbarian Brothers. You had all this muscle, there. Just every pro that anybody in bodybuilding that was pro-wise was there. It was just such an atmosphere that you just wanted to train. You just wanted to get in. So many big guys and great, I guess around 2 or 3 years, Mike Christian and I. So anybody was there. It was just an atmosphere you just can't hardly explain.
When you would go into the gym and you'd be there and walking around, who is like the most impressive looking guy in the entire gym to you back in the day?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite get that.
Who is the most impressive looking person? Like when you would walk around the gym and you'd see this person training, who was just like mind-boggling when you would see him in the gym?
Well, there were so many like that. You had the best of the best there. Lee Haney was incredible to me because he just looked so aesthetic and just had so much muscle and just was such a natural guy and super friendly guy. I know Lee Haney really well, but all of them. Whether it was Gary Stratham was incredible. All these guys that would come in there, it would just blow your mind what you would see and see the guys really training hard and getting after it, the best of the best there.
Who lifted the heaviest weights there? Who would you say was the strongest guy you ever seen in the gym?
Gosh, that's a hard one, because there were so many strong guys. I remember Mike wasn't a big guy. Mike Christian. I remember one time we were squatting. We had around 500 pounds on the rack. Mike had just come in from a European tour, And he comes over there and he just gets under the bar with the 500 pounds on it and starts squatting. You know, this is kind of stuff that went on there. Just a lot of tremendously strong guys and tremendously well built. It was really an atmosphere. When you see people like Robbie Robinson, these are all the guys, the legends that were there. And, you know, you take it for granted when you're there back then. But today I look around and I don't see gyms like that anymore. You know, I just don't see it. It was just really hardcore. Even Pete, you know, when I first got there and started running the gym, he says, listen, he says, I don't want you to run it like any other gym. He said, because this place is different. I don't want you to try to sell memberships. We're not interested in that. We want to keep it hardcore, you know, just like it is. And that just really blew my mind. But he had something there. You know, looking back on it, he really had something, because that's what drew the people to Gold's Gym and all the other franchises that were out there.
Right. No, you're right. It was an impressive era, and that's when people would make the pilgrimage and they would move out there. So you had the best of the best training there. Nowadays, people don't leave. They got the internet. You can train from Alaska and still be a superstar because you can post all your workouts on social media and your YouTube and your Facebook page. And so let's take a step back now and talk about the clothing, because the clothing was iconic of the 90s era. I mean, I remember when I went and bought my first pair of CRAZEE WEAR pants from my friend Vinny Hanzik's store, The Athletic Edge in Westbury, New York, and I walked in there and I was like, what's this? The colors, the patterns, the leg size. Where did these crazy bodybuilding styles come from, Don? Who made them up?
Well, really, back then, when I started CRAZEE WEAR with Gary, we were basically buying just anything and everything because we were selling it so fast. It didn't seem to matter what color combination, whether it was loud or conservative. People were just buying it up, because before that, really, you think about it, Dave, all we really had was gray sweats or stripes down the side. This gave something new to the bodybuilder. They could be working out and leave working out, go to a restaurant and still look nice and dress it up. But it was phenomenal. I never dreamed that it would get to the point that it was in the 80s and 90s. I started out small. It continued to grow. I remember one Christmas, we had a load of clothes in stock. I don't know, it was thousands of garments, and we literally sold every single pair that we had in the whole place. We sold everything. At one point we were doing, and maybe it's not big for some people, we were doing $400,000 worth of sales a day on CRAZEE WEAR.
Whoa, hold on, I got to stop you. 400 grand a day you were making? Don, you were making $400,000 a day? I don't know if you can hear me, Johnny. You might unmute me.
That's right. I was doing 400,000. So that was.
What do you do with $400,000 a day?
I was netting 100 grand a day.
What were you guys doing with all the money?
It didn't take long to get to the million.
I'm having trouble. Don, I know I have a little technical difficulty here. What when you make $400,000 selling clothing per day, that's a lot of money. What were you guys doing with all this money that you were making?
We were putting it aside, you know, and in '93, I had decided that I had enough to live the rest of my life. So I moved back to Louisiana, left it with Gary, and you know, I basically had like $9.25 million, you know,
wow.
to me. Then a broker ended up getting with a broker, and a broker made me broker, and I ended up getting CRAZEE WEAR back from Gary and run again.
You lost all the money?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
I lost the money. I went to arbitration. I got like $1 million back, but then by the time the attorneys got the other part, it wasn't much left.
Oh my God.
So I ended up, okay, I'm back in CRAZEE WEAR. So CRAZEE WEAR has been so residual through so many different things. Here we are 30 years later, and CRAZEE WEAR still sells great. We're still selling it in every country in the world.
That's crazy. It's amazing the brand recognition and strength of it. But I know I'm harping on this, but I don't think the people understand. I don't know if Johnny could find some of these styles. The pants colors were so bright. We used to call them clown pants. They were like pink and yellow, and they were the size of the pant leg would be about the size of the waistline. It was the same. I mean, it was great when I was 315 pounds because they fit me great and they were comfortable. But I mean, it was an outlandish like styling that was going on. The sweatshirts just as bright colored, just as big and oversized. it almost seemed like it was never going to change. And then it seems like all of a sudden at some point we went back to the old gray sweatpants again. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, we still sell a lot of CRAZEE wear, but as far as the loud colors, they have slacked off. We make more conservative patterns. We've changed the styles and the patterns somewhat of them, but they still are the same. They still are very relaxed fit, soft, and we still sell a ton of them. But back then, like you said, there was no alternatives for other stuff, and people just bought them up like crazy, like you never would have imagined.
No.
You know, Dave, but it goes to show you, with bodybuilding, just like yourself, you've done a tremendous job with RxMuscle. But it shows that, with bodybuilding or any fitness, when you're really into it, you have to learn how to market yourself. And me as a little old guy in Louisiana went over there to California and really, really became very, very successful in that. And we've seen other guys do the same things. But a bodybuilder can't wait, or a fitness person can't wait till it comes to them. You got to go get it. And I think that's one important factor to bring forth, is that if you want to make a lot of money in the sports industry, you can't just sit there. You got to get motivated, and you've got to get after it, find that niche.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people sit at home and they wait for the phone to ring. But you're a very inspirational story, because you made a ton of money, you lost a ton of money, and you got back into it again. I think a lot of people would have been really disheartened and would have just quit, on life at that point, because that's got to be super depressing. And I talked to Ed Connors, the former owner of Gold's Gym. He went through something very similar. He was very wealthy. He lost his wealth, and then he got it back again. How do you overcome something like that, to take such a big hit, lose almost $9 million?
That is a tremendous hit, especially having to start all over again. But you just look at it like, what else are you going to do? And that if you did it once, you could do it again. Right. And you've got to be motivated, and you get after it. You can't sit there and just mope about it or complain. You just got to go forth and look for the opportunities and go again, because there are opportunities out there. And I was able to get CRAZEE Wear back and get it back going well, and CRAZEE Wear is successful again, which I'm thrilled with, and we're continuing to grow more and more each day. So you can't, just like you lose a show, a bodybuilding show or whatever, you can a lot of people just would quit. That we know how many people quit. Or else you can say, I'm going again. I'm gonna get up. I'm gonna get remotivated, and I'm gonna go do it again. And that's pretty much the same thing. Bodybuilding teaches you a lot of that too, Dave. As you know, it teaches you a lot of discipline and of losing and coming back and making a win. Because just like in our time, I wasn't, and you weren't. I don't think always a winner in every show.
Yeah.
We had our losses, but you got to learn how to lose, just like you learn how to win. Right. So we go through those losses, and then we finally end up winning if you stay with it long enough. But that's the same thing in business. You're going to have some losses, but if you keep at it and you keep working hard, you're going to eventually win at the top.
It's easier said than done for some people, but I want to say one thing, because another thing that CRAZEE Wear was always known for was high quality. Now, when I guess you could say the peak of the clothing industry hit in the mid-90s, a lot of knockoffs companies came out. These companies from Pakistan, they were cranking out this like knockoffs of CRAZEE Wear, selling them at half price. But you guys never ever, compromised. You never went lower grade. You never said, you know what, I'm going to cut the price because I don't want to lose out to these guys. You stayed high quality, and you fought in a marketplace that was obviously very competitive eventually. What was the idea behind that, and how did you keep yourself from selling out, so to speak?
You've got to look at repeat customers, Dave. You got to want that customer to come back again and give them something that's good enough quality that they're going to want to continue to buy from you. Yes, there was a lot of knockoffs that were making their clothes out of twill and very cheap material, very cheap threading where they'd split when you're working out, those kind of things. And you've got to pay special attention to the quality of your garment if you want to continue in business. You can't make junk, or you can't just use blanks. We actually cut and sew and dye. We start from scratch. We make all of our stuff here in the United States. So because we want to keep a good eye on the quality. We've done that from the beginning, and it's worked for us. And we continue to do that even today.
Do you still have that same factory? Because I remember Gary took me there, and I think it was like 95 or 94. He took me to the factory and was showing me where you guys, I didn't realize you sewed the stuff right there. I mean, it was made right in California, right in Venice.
Well, Dave, at the peak of it, we had a huge warehouse, and we had several contractors, many contractors working for us, hundreds of people. And it's not, we don't have it quite as many, but we are in the same place. We're still located in Los Angeles. We still do all of our contracting there, all of our sewing, cutting, buying of fabric, dyeing fabric, everything right there. So it's still done right there in California.
And who's responsible for making the style, I guess, decisions? Like, we're going to go with this style, or we're going to cut it here, or make this cut. Is that you still?
Yes, it is. I've done that from the beginning, and as far as coming up with the patterns and of looking at what we need to do, the perfect fits for what we're looking for, the right fabrics, whether we want to do a dyed garment or one that's already done. Mm-hmm. But we start from scratch. We make the garment from scratch. We don't just buy a blank and put a logo on it. We actually make everything.
What's in style now? What like seems to be the hot commodity in the clothing company?
Well, Dave, you and I came from way back, and I never thought that say a sleeveless hoodie would be something that would be popular. It didn't make any sense to me. Wear a hoodie with no sleeve. Like, what's the point?
Right.
But you got to be able to think out of the box, because if you just go by what you think, you're not going to be successful. You got to see what people want. And I think, and that's one of our hot products right now. Of course, tank tops have always been great. Our baggy pants have always been great. Now we're selling what we call the jogger pants, and the hoodies. We do the long sleeve, short sleeve, and sleeveless hoodies, which have done really well for us.
Now, I remember also Gary had given me, and I think I saw it on your website still that you sell it too. You have jeans. They're like jeans, but they're almost like sweatpants.
Yeah, we have those with an elastic waistband. The 50D was what we call in denim jeans. And we also have a stylish, what we call a 50J denim, that's more of with the belt loops and more stylish. And we actually coming out with a new jean, even as I speak, that's fitted for bodybuilders, with the bigger legs,
sure,
for the smaller waist, to fit and really look stylish. So we've really been working on that hard, and we're coming out with our third jean right now.
I could never find jeans to fit me when my legs were 33 inches. Obviously now then I can get into anything now, but back then it was impossible. And you guys, a lot of bodybuilders out there are probably watching this and saying, I can't get a pair of jeans to go to my parents' house on Thanksgiving, and all they got to do is go to your website and check the stuff out. I mean, it's top quality merchandise. Talk to me about your relationship with Lyle Alzado. Where did you meet him, and what was he like back in the day?
Well, Lyle Alzado, I met at Gold's Gym, and we became good friends. We'd have breakfast every morning. We'd train together. Super nice guy. Hung out with him on a regular basis, like I said, and it was just really sad to see what had happened to him. But he was. A lot of people took Lyle in a different way, because he was very aggressive on the football field, as you very well know. But really, as a person, when you just talk to him, he's just like a big kid. Just really would give you the shirt off his back. He was just a really nice guy, and a best of friends to me. Really good guy.
What kind of personality was he? Cool in the gym? Like, did he talk to people, and like, was he very social?
Well, I know one time he was very social. He was very nice unless you crossed him. And I remember one day in the gym, there were the Barbarian brothers, and him were in an argument, and Lyle just said, "I'll just take both of you on," and I don't know what happened, but it was kind of crazy back then. The next day, their Jeep accidentally blew up in the parking lot. I don't know what really happened.
I heard that. You think Lyle was responsible for that?
I don't know. I don't know anything about it, but I just know it happened the next day. So. You didn't really want to mess with Lyle, but if you were just a friend, he's the best friend you could ask for.
That's funny. A lot of stories, that I've heard, I know Gary Stridham. I wasn't personal friends with him, but I know him enough to call him up. But I heard that Gary was one of the 8 more food than almost any other bodybuilder of all time. Obviously, you worked with him. What was his eating schedule like when he was in training, serious training?
You're right about that. He did eat a lot, but he ate really clean. He was really on time with his meals. He was a very clean, neat guy that made sure everything was well taken care of, and liked to have everything really organized. And that's what I really respected about Gary. He was a good businessman, and he really wanted things to be right. And he started here. You remember, he came from Africa, and he came here with nothing at all. and really came a long, long ways. Terrific bodybuilder, as you know, one of the greats, and just a great guy. I can't say enough good about him. He was really good with me, and we had a good time together.
Now, when you came back to the company after you lost all that money, and were you and Gary running it together again?
Yeah, we had talked. We had been talking somewhat over the years, and Gary was wanting to move back to Thailand. He was ready to retire, and I offered to buy the business back from him because I had sold the business to him when I left, and now I bought it back from Gary and worked out all the details and moved everything and got everything going again.
Talk to me a little bit about Joe Weider's influence back in the 80s and early 90s in that Gold's Gym era. Was he, because a lot of people only knew him, myself included, as an old man, What was the aura of Joe Weider like back then?
Joe Weider was a terrific guy. I remember one time he called me in and talked with him and went over things, and we were going to do a shoot together. And I told him, well, I'll be ready to do the shoot after the USA. And I didn't place well in the USA, Dave, and I was just a kid then, young. And so I thought, well, surely he's not going to want to use me because I didn't win the USA. Right. So I didn't show up. Oh. And he calls me and he says, where were you at? We had a photo shoot. And I said, well, I just think you didn't need me. And he says, I didn't care what you placed or whether you won that show. He said, I liked your look. You had a good California look. So I blew it, but he was the kind of guy that he didn't care where you came from or whatever. He wanted to help you. He'd take the time, when you go to his place and sit down with you and look at you and talk to you and didn't look down on anybody. He was a great guy. I like Joe a lot.
What was your relationship, if you had any, with Arnold Schwarzenegger back in the day?
Arnold was a little bit before my time. I did see him in the gym quite a bit. Nice guy. He was the kind of guy that just kind of took the atmosphere. When he was in the gym training, he was like Arnold was like the main guy. He wasn't a shy guy by any means, as you know. Sure. And he would just take over the atmosphere, but seemed to be a great guy.
Why do you think, Don, that the Gold's Gym mystique kind of has fizzled? I don't know if that's the right term for it. Is it the internet? I think it's the internet, but why do you think that people stop making the pilgrimage out there? People stop holding Gold's Gym Venice as the mecca of all bodybuilding?
Well, like I said before, I think Pete really had a niche on what he was doing when he bought it back from Joe Gold.
Right.
And he wanted to have the pro bodybuilders there. When the company went public, things really changed. It became about making money then and making big money.
Yeah.
So they changed it and began to bring the offices in with all the different salespeople and began to change things. And it changed the whole aura of the place. So it was no longer the same Gold's Gym. I went back there and I was like, what happened? It's that feeling, that atmosphere, that electricity was no longer there. It was a whole different place. It wasn't the same thing. So I don't think it was necessarily the internet. I think it was when it went public and it became about making money. And they thought, other people that came in thought, well, hey, we can make more money by doing it this way. But yet they lost what Pete was really doing, what he had really made him successful. They started doing something different and lost it.
They lost the magic. Yeah, they did.
Yes.
Don, like I said, coming into this industry as a young kid, working your way up, losing money, getting money back, still doing well. What advice can you give to bodybuilders out there who are looking at the bodybuilding industry, our industry as a whole, and saying to myself, man, I would just like to make a living doing what I'm doing? What kind of advice can you give them business-wise?
The first thing I think, and I tell most people this, I say, first of all, you got to start out looking at it as a hobby, because that's what it is to begin with. Not many people make it to the top in bodybuilding, as you very well know. Not many people make it as a pro like you are, Dave. Mm-hmm. So, you got to be realistic with yourself. And then those that are starting that have the genetic potential and are moving up in the ranks, I tell them, begin to, work with other companies like my company or whoever to get your name out there, to get your face out in the magazines and the websites and so forth, and to begin to market yourself. Don't just wait for it to come to you. Get out and market yourself to the industry and find whether it's nutritional. Like you said, back then there wasn't a lot of like nutritional companies. It was clothing. Now nutritional companies have taken over big, but there's still a lot of different areas in business that they can get into. Personal training. There was no such thing as personal training when we were training back then, Dave.
Right.
I mean, you trained yourself and you dieted yourself. Charles Glass is one of the well-known and renowned trainers in the world.
Yeah.
And Charles Glass and I worked out together for 4 years. You know, we just did it because we loved it. You know, and I'm so happy for him. I'm excited at what he's done. But again, he found a niche. You know, Jay Cutler found a niche. All these people, Lee Haney, they found a niche. You found a niche in the market, and you've got to find that niche, and you got to work hard and don't give up and stay with it.
Do you think, last question, do you think we'll ever have another clothing renaissance like we did in the late 80s, early 90s?
I've been hoping for it ever since then.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I begin to see even some prints. You know, you'll notice like the tights that women are wearing they're coming back with prints on them and stuff like that. So I see it moving more toward that direction again. Probably not the parachute pants like we're back, you know, with MC Hammer pants and stuff like that. I don't think so. But good conservative type prints and good looking prints. I think, I think again, will it take off like it was back then? Dave, I've never seen anything like that we had back then. I was in an explosion and happened to be at the right place at the right time and was well able to take advantage of it. I'm very thankful.
One of the pairs of pants that I really remembered, and I couldn't wait to get myself, they were very popular, and you probably still make them, were the American flag pants you guys made. How did that come about? Whose idea was that?
Actually, I think that was Gary's idea. Gary came up with those. And you're right, they're loud, very loud. And I would have probably, the reason I did, I would have probably thought nobody would have bought it because that was extremely loud. But they do, and they still ask for them today. And I don't really want to do them because they're so loud, because I'm more of a conservative guy. But we'll do whatever people like.
Those are my favorite pants of all time from CRAZEE Wear. But Don, I want to thank you so much for taking some time and talking to us. What's the website? CRAZEEWEAR.com?
Yes, sir. It's CRAZEEWEAR.com. That's spelled with 2 E's instead of a Y.
Right.
And you go to the website, and we also give away free catalogs, and we give an extra 10% to anyone that puts in the code RxMuscle. An extra 10% off of our already low price.
We love discounts. All my listeners and viewers love discounts. Guys, remember 10% off CRAZEEWEAR.com if you put in the discount code RxMuscle. See, we give you guys back. Don, thank you so much for taking time out of your day and filling us in on a little history of the bodybuilding industry. I try to educate our viewers out there as to what it was like prior to the modern era. And I hope we could bring back that golden age of clothing because I really do miss it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk and be with you guys today.
All right, and that's going to take us to the end of another episode of Live With, brought to you by Quest Nutrition. Visit questnutrition.com. I'm Dave Palumbo, and we'll see you next time.